Alright, hey, let's knock off the chatter here real quick. Let's go through a couple different things in case you're gone Tuesday. We had 6 problems. I can put them back on the board if you need to at the very end of today. Might put them back there, back by golf. You have to look at this map, you had to measure it with a ruler, and you had to find the distance and how much it would cost you to travel between towns. Now, the things that we needed. Number one, you needed your 2 towns that you're going to, okay? Second thing, you needed to know the actual conversion, how to convert, centimeters, because we use centimeters. We had to convert that back to miles. Then what we used is 40 miles per gallon as our vehicle. We used a Toyota Corolla, 2018 Toyota Corolla, that had 40 miles per gallon highway. And we used, that gas price was $2.82 per gallon. You needed to use all these numbers to figure out the final answer. There was only 6 of them you had to do. They're pretty basic. I think some people even had it almost done when they were leaving. Okay, but you have to make sure that you're converting. So my example here, let's say you're measuring, we'll go from Las Vegas, and we'll go all the way to Atlanta. All right, hey, let's knock off the chatters here. Okay. So Las Vegas to Atlanta. Now I'm going to just make up a number. So you put your ruler down. Let's say that you figured out that it was 16.5 centimeters. Okay. Let's say that that's what you measured out to be. I have no idea. Didn't measure that. So let's say it's 16.5. Well, the conversion you have to do. This is the one conversion you needed. That 19.2 centimeters is 2,441 miles. That's the conversion we had to use on every single problem. In fact, I'm going to put a box around that. Every single problem, that's the conversion you're using. Now, to solve this, you have to cross, multiply, and divide, and that will give you the mileage. So you're taking 16.5, you're multiplying it by the 2,441, and you're going to divide by 19.2. That will convert it back to miles. Okay, so I'm actually going to multiply that out. I think I have a calculator somewhere. Okay, so multiplying this out, 16.5 times 2,441 divided by 19.2, this is 2,000 miles. It turned out to be 2,097.7 miles. Try to be as accurate as possible. If you want to go a couple decimal places, you're fine. I required at least 1. You had to go at least 1 decimal place. Now that you have your mileage, the next thing, and this is the part we're going to look at today, why these certain things were happening. When you take your 2,097.7 miles and you divide by your 40 miles per gallon, this turns out to be how many gallons of gas you're going to use. Now, today, my goal is to show you why does that work. We're going to look at that. Okay, it's a conversion thing. You probably do this a lot in chemistry and sciences. But when you divide this by 40, I'm going to have to use 52.44 gallons of gas. Now, what we also talked about on Tuesday, I didn't require this in the homework. How many tanks would that be? Toyota Corolla had 13.2 gallon tank, so that would be multiple fills on the tank. So it's going to be kind of expensive. Now, I didn't require that you did that, but if you want to know how many tanks it would be, you divide by 13.2. That's what your tank is full. But what we have to do. Take your 52.44 gallons, whatever you found, and you have to multiply by the price per gallon. So price, this is the 282, that's price per gallon. And the goal today is to talk about why does this work. So if I take my 52 and I take it times 282, this turned out to be 147.89. That's $147 to drive across country. Now,
what was that distance?
2,000 miles. Yep.
You just made that up.
Yeah, the 16.5, I was kind of guessing what the measurement was, because this map isn't as accurate as yours, because I'm blowing it up on a projector. So I'd be measuring in feet with a ruler. I don't have centimeters. So, all right. Now, here's the thing. What we didn't cover is, and I hinted at this fact, I didn't talk about what the price would be to repair, get oil changes. We're gonna talk about that today. That's one of our major topics. But this, if you haven't written this down, like let's say you were gone Tuesday, this should be number one thing with a bullet that you should be writing in your notes. Because nothing frustrates me more than I write all this stuff down on the board, you walk out of here and then you come back going, I don't know what to do. It's non-excusable. It's exactly what you're saying here. You convert to miles, like exactly the formula I'm using. You divide by 40 to figure out how many gallons you're using, and you multiply by 282 every single time. You have 6 problems you're going to have to do that on. Questions? Alright, now, the goal today, we have 2 goals. Number 1, we have to talk about why do these 2 things work. Why do they work the way that they do? Why does it give you the correct, price? Why is it giving you the numbers? Why is it working out to be like these labels? That's a part of sciences. We need to talk about it. That's a big part of math, is labels. Number 2, we have to talk about the repair cost. That's not something I'm going to add to the assignment. It's something that we'll be doing tomorrow. That we'll be talking about, what would an oil change cost you? What would it cost to repair a transmission? What are the things that you need to be aware of when you go into a body shop or you go into a shop at all, and how they're going to charge you? Things that you should ask so that you sound somewhat intelligent about what you're doing. Okay, you don't need to know the exact parts. It's good to research that and ask them ahead of time to give you a heads up what the parts are, so that you can do research on what they cost. There's nothing that's worse than finding out that the part that you need for that car costs you $1,400. Okay, because the example I used that I said I think earlier this week, it's like I had a BMW at one point right when I graduated Iowa State. The seat motor went out after 1 year. The seat motor that moves you forward and back, up and down kind of thing. It was $1,400, and it was about 3 hours worth of work to them. And they were charging me $150 an hour to fix it. And the worst part was, right after I fixed that, the moonroof motor went out for the moonroof. That was another $1,700 on top of it. And that cost labor.
You paid that?
Yeah.
What's yours?
My car? Yeah, thanks, you spent that. Thanks. Alright. Okay, so these are the number one things we need to make sure that we have today. You need to see the realistic cost of what it will take. Okay? Alright, today, have your notes out right now. We're going to go through a couple things. I will ask some people in the room to do some calculations for me. So be ready to go. It'll be pretty random today. I'm seeing if you're paying attention. So hopefully you have a calculator. Alright, let me get rid of the math. Brody, I need to mark it. Hopefully you don't get called the office here in a second. Alright.
What's wrong with making
You're gonna get blocked.
You're gonna get it.
Found it. Gonna get blocked. The best time to take that is sports. Fun party.
Alright, so, number 1, what we have to talk about first is these conversions. I want to talk about how do you know what the answer is coming out? How do you know how do I know that the label will be a certain way? Because what I just told you a little bit ago, we're taking gallons of gas and we're dividing by miles per gallon. How do we know? Actually, it was mileage, that's what we're doing, right? We're taking miles and we're dividing by miles per gallon. How do we know that this is going to be the label? How do we know that what it's going to give me at the very end is how many gallons of gas I need? Because that was the conversion I told you. When you find your mileage, you divide by 40. So, here's how. When you divide by fractions, you have to multiply by a reciprocal. This is something I want you to write down in your notes right now. So have your notes out, please, right now. So when you're dividing by a fraction, you actually multiply by the reciprocal, which means you flip this fraction over. That's how you technically divide by fractions. So yes, the label is a fraction. I know that we were dividing by a whole number like 40, but it was actual fraction. So we're, now when we flip this over, this is actually what we're doing. When you multiply fractions together, diagonally, the labels cancel. So if they have the same label diagonally from each other, they would cancel. And that's why when you actually took how many miles you had, and you're dividing by 40, or multiplying by, the flip here, the idea is that you were left with so many gallons of gas. Because the labels all canceled, all the miles labels canceled out, and you're just left with gallons. That's why it worked the way that it did. When we took that 2,097.7 miles, and we divided by 40, and you did the whole thing where you converted, and we took those numbers and actually divided it, the label was gallons because of this situation. Okay, questions? Just throw that thing across the room.
No, I want like this and pencil.
Pencil's over there. Now, okay, let's do the next one. Okay, the next one that I had is how many gallons of gas? I think I used 52.3, I think I said. Okay, the next thing is when we were multiplying by the price. So I was taking that 52 gallons times the 282. This was price per gallon, And we're taking this, and I warned you, you had to multiply by how many gallons you had. 52.3 gallons. Here's why it worked out to be the certain price that it was. Per gallon is a fraction. What this label is on this, it's price per gallon. Per means you actually put it on the bottom. So the idea is that when you actually multiply price per gallon times how many gallons you have, the gallons is over 1. These labels cancel out, and that's why you're left with price. That's why you're left with the total. I think what I said earlier is like $147 or something like that. It was 147, what was the number that I had? 0.89, something like that. I know these numbers are not super accurate because I'm using the old numbers I was using. This is why it just turned out to be in price. Because when you actually multiply, they actually cancel out diagonally. How I know to do this, like how do I know, look, am I multiplying or am I dividing? I need to make sure that the labels cancel and gives me the correct label, what I need. Yeah, like chemistry, you're trying to figure out a certain label. If you divide, you flip, and then you see if they cancel. Now, why this is important. One of the things we talked about was, price per gallon, miles per gallon. We talked about how to figure out the price of it, or how to figure out how many gallons you're having. Knowing by the label situation, knowing that I needed to divide before I multiplied, was just so that my labels turn out the way that they do. Now, last thing today, I want to talk about, other than labels and why the numbers worked out the way they did. I want to talk about the price. Okay. Okay, what I want to talk about is, let's say you're going over a road trip. Let's say we're going over a road trip and we want to see what it will cost in oil changes. Okay, typically oil changes happen every 3,000 miles. Depends if you have normal, typical oil, synthetic oil. You can go even higher. So this is like a typical normal oil. If you're going the synthetic stuff, I know that some synthetics you can change every 5,000 miles, some go 15 or 10. I've definitely seen, there was just a commercial yesterday on the TV during the basketball games where you can buy synthetic oil that goes up to 20,000 miles guaranteed. I would never do that. Okay, the reason why, the more fresh the oil, the better your car runs, the more fuel efficient it is. So, it's one of those things like you want to change it more, even though I know like you could go buy 20,000 mile synthetic oil, I would never do that. If you're going to put that in your car, fine, but you better change it out sooner than that. I would say like if you're getting synthetic, I hover around the 5,000 to 7,000 range. That's where I would get if you have synthetic. If you don't know, always change every 3,000 or before that. Do not wait until after 3,000 miles. You're going to cause major damage. Now, one of the responsibilities when you're getting your oil changed, knowing what they're going to cost you, what they're going to charge you per hour. So, what they're gonna charge you per hour, how many quarts or gallons of oil it will take you, they need to tell you that up front, so you can do a quick calculation yourself. They should tell you how much the oil filter costs, so that you're well aware of that. The other thing that you need to make sure of, this is not a hard process. This is something that you can easily do on your own on certain cars. Okay, now, is it easy on every car? No. Like on my personal car, my Fusion outside, my car has a shell on the bottom, and you have to take out like 20 bolts to get the whole shell to drop off the bottom of my car. Then you can access the oil. That's something I can't do on my own, because the car actually has to be off the ground for that shell to come off the bottom of my car. Certain trucks, they're easy. You just get on your back. It's 2 feet on top of you. You can just change it out. If you need an oil pan, you need to have some place that you can get rid of the oil. You can't just pour it on the ground. It's one of those things, like it's sometimes easier just having the company actually change out your oil for you. But you need to be careful what company you go to. There's a couple of companies in Mason City, reputable brands. They have TV commercials all the time. They will try to find things that are broken in your car because they don't want you just to be charged $30 for your oil change. They want to upcharge you to say, hey, you should probably get your axle looked at. Your wheel bearings are going out. Yeah, they want to upsell you because they don't want to just charge you $30 and send you out the door. These are things like you need to go get a second quote. There's certain things on a car that cost a ton of money other than transmission. Wheel bearings, brakes, rotors. Like you need to change out your brake pads often. Like you should do that. You should get them changed. They are super crazy expensive. Like if your brake pads go bad and you break the rotors on it, that's because you're pushing the brakes too hard. You're slamming on your brakes a lot. You'll go through your brake pads. It'll start grinding when you start coming to a stop. It costs you a fortune to get that fixed because it's not a hard concept to repair. But the labor, it's super labor intensive. It takes a long time to get the pads and the rotors changed out. So actually the cost comes out to what you're paying the mechanic to repair it. So what I want to talk about today is what would it cost roughly for an oil change? What should you expect? Depends on where you take it. So let's say we're going normal, typical oil. Okay? Let's say your car requires 7 quarts.
I go to Power Bill.
Okay, now where you can find how many quarts of oil your car will change or will need. You can go online, search it. You can go in the inside of the doorway. Sometimes in the inside of your door panel on the driver's side, they'll have how many quarts of oil it will take. It's in the manual as well for the car. It depends on what model you have. They'll warn you how many quarts. If you go to the store, you can figure out the price. Maybe it's going to cost you $6.83 per quart. Okay, cheap oil. Okay, I would not recommend going with the cheapest route. I recommend going with the one that's appropriate for your car. There's different numbers on it. Okay, there's certain ones that I trust. There's certain ones that I won't. It just depends. If you'll figure it out. You can see what your mechanic's using at their shop. That's the one I'd probably just choose. Now, once you have these chose, okay, because I'm gonna have to pay for those. And that's why the label comes in. Then, so I'm going to have to take these 7 from this. You have to buy 1 oil filter. That, in any store you go in, they'll have a book or a computer that you can type in your car, your model, your year. And yes, you have to be very specific on what car, model, and year you have, especially the engine size, because if you have a hybrid versus non-hybrid, if there's a 2-liter versus a 1.6 liter, that's how many gas, like what the fuel pump actually uses. The oil filter is very specific. If you get the wrong oil filter, it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. So that's something you might need to ask somebody to help you on. It's fine, ask. Okay, these are dirt cheap, $5. Okay, they're not expensive. Let's say it's $5 and a quarter. They're super dirt cheap. They try to upsell you some $15 filter, they're ripping you off. You don't need to have the super expensive, like high-end Fram filter that has chrome on the outside of it. You don't need it. Okay, it's gonna be oil, and you have to change it out every time you get new oil. Okay, now, oil change itself shouldn't take longer than 20 minutes. If it's taking longer than 20 minutes, it could be that your car has a shell on the bottom like mine does, where they actually have to take out bolts and raise it and pull that stuff off. But even that, it shouldn't take more than a half an hour. If they're saying like, hey, it's gonna be a 2-hour wait, you better go check the shop and see that there's cars in there. Because if it's a 3-hour wait, they might be charging you for the 3 hours you're waiting. That's something you need to be aware of, okay? Now, let's say that your car takes a little while, it takes 30 minutes. I don't know what yours is gonna take, it could take 10.
It's not bad
Okay.
for you.
But maybe it's your first time doing it, it takes 30 minutes, or it's the mechanic's first time. Fine. What you need to know is what they're gonna charge you per hour. Mechanics, they could easily charge you $60 per hour. Well now, you just have a very expensive oil change. Stop, get rid of the candy bag. So if it's $60 per hour and you went a half an hour, they're charging $30 in labor because it's, you know, if you went a full hour, it was $60, but you went a half an hour, so it's half of that, so it's 30. That's an expensive oil change now because you still have to pay for all the oil and the filter. That's something you need to be thinking about. Sometimes when I take it uptown, it takes them 5 minutes. They know my car, they pull it off. They don't even charge me labor anymore, it's just the oil and the filter. Because I go there so often, sometimes you just have that. The bigger name brands like Midas and stuff, they won't give you that break. They know that. They're pulling in cars, they're charging you for labor, the oil, because they know you're gonna come back. Sometimes it's nice to just go to a local shop and get it done, okay? But anyways, so in my case, it's gonna cost me $30 because I went a half an hour. Now, if you didn't know what that is, you can take your minutes, divide by 60, it's 0.5 times that. Okay. So whatever time it takes, divide by 60, and then take that times the price per hour that you're getting charged. That'll give you what your cost is. For me, it's $30. But then I have to add in all of these. 7 of those quarts of oil, 7 times 6, 83. That's $47 worth of oil. That's just the oil. Plus I have the filter. Now, what would save me a ton of money? Stop buying quarts separately. Buy the big jug. It's $20, $25. Now you have a huge jug that has 5 quarts in it, and you only have to buy 2 extra separate ones that are cheaper. So you'll actually save money in the long run buying the bigger quarts. You just figure out how many there is. Okay, it's always safer to have now, don't get me wrong here. It's always safer to have more oil on hand, but don't pour all of it in your car. After you pour in 5 or 6 quarts, you check where the level's at, and then you add more if you need it. Nothing's worse in your car than adding more oil than's necessary. It causes pressure issues, and it can actually ruin your engine. So that's something that you need to be careful of if you're changing it yourself. Same with gas. Don't top up your car all the way up and keep going. There's a pressure issue. You'll break your fuel pump, and you'll break the actual sensors inside the actual gas tank. That's why you don't overfill your tank when the pump stops, like it clicks off. Stop there. If you want to ever see an example of it, perfect example is on motorcycles. The gas tank's right in front of you. If you overfill the gas tank and you try to go past the reserve point and you're driving down the road at speed, the oil cap will literally burst off of your oil tank because the pressure is forcing it up. That's why you don't overfill the tanks. It's the same thing with a gas pump, fuel pump on a car. You don't overfill the gas tank because it causes pressure so it knows how much gas is in the tank. It ruins that. Now, these are all the things that you have to add up. So if I add all these up, here's what I have. I have 6. I have a 10 plus, that's 10 cents, I'm carrying a 1 over. That's 12, 15, 16, carrying a 1. And this is gonna cost, ooh, wait, I just had that wrong, didn't I? 47.81 plus 20, or 525 plus 30. That's an expensive oil change. This is $83 oil change. Hey, this is something you have to do every 3,000 miles. I just did that road trip earlier that was 2,000 miles. I'd probably consider I need an oil change now. You probably should have had one before you went on it, but now I got to consider I have to have an oil change. I just went 2,000 miles. I'm probably over the limit now. And also, after you get these fixes, you need to double check that they're correct after you leave. That's something that you need to go back and check that when you go home, that your oil isn't dripping out the bottom of your car. If you get your tires changed, you get new tires fixed, or you have a rotation, you need to go back after 50 miles, or they say 30 miles, to go see if they're actually bolted on correctly. Because I've seen cars where they've taken off the wheel, changed out the tire, they bolted it back on, you drove down the road, and the tire literally falls off. Because they stripped out the screws, and the screws rotate and they fall off of your car. I've seen it. It happened to a couple of kids a couple of years ago. Okay, but they stripped out the screws, the tire literally fell off as they're driving. So,
So do you have to redo that then? Is it the same as?
if they mess up, they'll fix coverage. They will deny everything about it, especially oil. You ruin the engine, you run out of oil. Because I've seen it where the filter fell off, they just didn't secure it tight enough. It worked its way off after all the rumbling of your car, and all the oil exited your car, and then the engine seizes, like it just stops moving, and it can't fix it. It's gone.
So they can get in trouble for it?
No, they have to pay for it. The company eventually takes responsibility. Your insurance company will pay for all the damages, and they'll get you a new car. They'll get you a new car. Now, if you have an old meter, they'll give you something with equal value. It's not a good one. All right. Hey, today, you have the rest of the time today. You need to work on the map problem. I'm going to put the 6 problems on the back of the board, and if you need the map and the ruler, let me know, because I know some people were gone on Tuesday. Hopefully you have that stuff written down. That should be a practical problem. We're going to do a couple of those things tomorrow in class, so be ready to go.